On 6 July 1945, Dwight Eisenhower stared at a map, breathing slowly while Europe waited. He hadn't slept well. The war in Europe was over, yet alliances felt fragile, stretched thin by ambition. Across the table sat Bernard Montgomery, immaculate and unbending, carrying victories like armor, demanding obedience from allies. Eisenhower remembered the Normandy nights, letters from mothers, and Patton's fiery temper, all colliding in his mind. This meeting mattered because armies were listening. Governments were watching, and reputations could fall in a single afternoon. Since 20 June 1944, Montgomery had pressed claims and disputed commands, testing patience at every table. Now, victory sharpened egos. The Pacific War raged on, and Allied unity felt fragile, despite the parades. Eisenhower folded his hands, thinking of millions demobilizing, the Soviets advancing, and the weight of a single, final decision. Frankfurt's air was heavy. The summer heat pressed against the windows, and history seemed to lean closer, waiting for restraint or rupture. When Eisenhower finally spoke, his voice was calm, his decision firm, and Montgomery sensed a door quietly closing. Montgomery straightened his papers, masking irritation behind courtesy, unaware that patience had finally expired in this room. Years of compromise weighed here, from Sicily to Arnhem, each argument resurfacing, demanding resolution. Eisenhower's authority came from restraint, from listening longer than others, and from choosing unity over pride. He knew Britain needed dignity, America needed clarity, and soldiers needed certainty before marching again. Outside, trucks idled, clerks whispered in corridors alive with quiet urgency, and flags stirred faintly against gray skies. Inside, silence stretched, seconds heavier than shells, as leadership turned inward, then decisive. This was not anger exploding. It was resolve settling, a commander choosing limits, for the sake of the alliance. The silence broke slowly as Eisenhower rose from his chair, steady and deliberate. On 7 July 1945, the meeting resumed, no aides present. No notes taken, just consequence. Montgomery spoke first, measured yet sharp, pressing for authority, invoking past victories and British prestige. Eisenhower listened without interruption, eyes fixed, hands still, letting every word settle its weight. He thought of Arnhem's bridges, promises stretched too far, and soldiers stranded beneath cold skies. When Eisenhower finally answered, his tone carried steel, wrapped in courtesy, unmistakable and final. He reminded Montgomery of coalition warfare, of shared command, and of limits agreed long before victory. This was not a reprimand shouted. It was correction delivered with calm and moral clarity. Montgomery's confidence wavered briefly, jaw tightening, posture stiffening. As control slipped, Eisenhower stated plainly that future operations, planning, and authority would not bend again. No more public disputes, no private maneuvering, no pressure through London or the press. The war had demanded patience. Peace demanded discipline, and Eisenhower would enforce both. Montgomery nodded, outwardly composed, inwardly stunned, realizing influence had permanently narrowed. Outside, Europe rebuilt slowly. Cities scarred, graves fresh, and power shifting eastward. Eisenhower closed the meeting gently, offering respect without concession, ending years of quiet tension. As Montgomery departed the corridor, footsteps echoed differently, no longer leading, now following. This day marked an unseen transfer, authority consolidated, egos constrained, and unity preserved. By 8 July 1945, word spread quietly, not through headlines, but through posture and protocol. Officers noticed invitations change, briefings shorten, and Montgomery's voice arrived later, softer than before. Eisenhower moved deliberately, reinforcing chains of command, ensuring no confusion lingered after victory. In Berlin, corridors shifted with maps moving eastward. Soviet flags advancing, and Western leaders recalculating futures. Montgomery felt the change immediately, respected publicly. Yet bypassed privately, influence carefully contained. He reviewed reports in solitude, recalling El Alamein glory, now distant beneath political realities. Eisenhower consulted Bradley and Marshall, weighing demobilization, occupation zones, and looming Cold War shadows. The war against Germany was over, yet the war for peace demanded steadier hands. On 9 July 1945, Eisenhower addressed senior staff, emphasizing unity, restraint, and absolute discipline. There was no mention of Montgomery. Yet everyone understood the reference and the warning. Across Europe, soldiers packed kits. Civilians scavenged ruins. And new borders hardened quietly. Montgomery toured units dutifully. Smiles practiced, speeches shorter. Applause polite but restrained. He sensed history pivoting away. Leadership evolving from battlefield daring to diplomatic control. Eisenhower bore the burden calmly, knowing friendship's strain when authority finally asserts itself. This was not personal vendetta. It was survival of the alliance under emerging global tension. Every decision now echoed beyond Europe, reaching Washington, London, and Moscow alike. Montgomery understood, too late perhaps, that the door closed gently, but forever. On 10 July 1945, Montgomery arrived in London, greeted by ceremony, yet sensing distance. British newspapers praised victories, but avoided future command. Reading between restrained official lines, Churchill watched carefully. Empire thinning, elections looming, and alliances shifting beyond old certainty. Montgomery briefed ministers with confidence intact. Yet his recommendations met polite hesitation. Across the Atlantic, Eisenhower sent cables, calm and concise, defining roles without drama. Montgomery realized influence now required consensus. Not insistence, diplomacy replacing battlefield authority. In Germany, occupation plans unfolded, zones fixed, patrols organized, and discipline enforced rigidly. Eisenhower toured devastated cities, seeing hunger, rubble, and fear, far removed from victory parades. He understood power now meant restraint, preventing revenge, chaos, and ideological fracture. On 11 July 1945, Allied commanders met again, Montgomery present, yet peripheral. He spoke carefully, choosing words measured, aware every tone carried consequence. The room followed Eisenhower instinctively, decisions aligning around his calm certainty. Montgomery felt respect remain, but leadership slip, a subtle, irreversible transition. Outside, history accelerated. Japan resisted fiercely. Atomic plans whispered, and the world braced. Eisenhower balanced endings and beginnings, closing one war, opening another uncertain peace. Montgomery returned to quarters thoughtful. Medals heavy, future uncertain. Legacy under quiet revision. This was not humiliation. It was marginalization, delivered softly, yet unmistakably permanent. By 12 July 1945, the balance of power felt settled, though never announced aloud. Eisenhower's headquarters moved with confidence. Orders flowing cleanly, disputes vanishing before forming. Montgomery observed from the edges. Included formally, excluded strategically. Learning restraint by necessity. In Washington, discussions turned to Japan. Casualty estimates grim, and patience wearing thin. Eisenhower remained in Europe. Yet his influence stretched oceans. Trusted beyond any single theater. He wrote privately about coalition limits. Pride restrained, and leadership tested by victory. Montgomery drafted memos carefully, no longer demanding, now advising with caution and brevity. The transformation was visible, ambition tempered by reality. Authority redistributed quietly. On 13 July 1945, Allied planning sessions emphasized occupation, reconstruction, and ideological containment. The enemy was no longer uniform divisions, but instability, hunger, and political fracture. Eisenhower insisted discipline remain absolute, preventing incidents that could fracture alliances further. Montgomery agreed publicly, though memories of command burned beneath composure. British officers sensed decline, not of respect, but of future centrality. America's weight dominated decisions. Resources vast, confidence unchallenged. Leadership decisive. Eisenhower bore this without triumph, aware dominance required humility to endure. Europe watched new masters emerge. Flags changing, borders stiffening, and loyalties tested daily. Montgomery's silence grew louder than speeches, marking acceptance of a changed order. The snapping point had passed, replaced by permanence, shaping the post-war world. On 14 July 1945, Eisenhower reviewed reports from Berlin, Paris, and Warsaw. Each document spoke of shortages, political tension, and soldiers unsure of tomorrow across ruined Europe. Victory had removed the enemy, yet exposed fractures between allies once united under wartime necessity. Eisenhower sensed history hardening, moving away from generals toward statesmen and planners beyond the battlefield. Montgomery read the same reports, noting omissions, tone shifts, and unfamiliar signatures with quiet concern. He understood command now flowed through Eisenhower, Washington, and emerging institutions, shaping the future. On 15 July 1945, Allied policy meetings narrowed focus, excluding grand offensives and rivalries. Discussion centered on food supply, denazification, and preventing Soviet misunderstandings through careful messaging. Eisenhower spoke sparingly, allowing consensus to form, then guiding it firmly, without spectacle. Montgomery listened intently, recognizing this was leadership evolved, not diminished, but redirected. The snapping moment lingered silently, reshaping behavior, expectations, and ambition across Allied command. Eisenhower carried responsibility heavily, aware peace could collapse as quickly as war without unity. Montgomery walked corridors thoughtfully, medals gleaming, influence fading, purpose recalibrated. Neither man spoke of that meeting, yet its echo guided every interaction, decision, and silence. The world moved forward cautiously, watching Europe, watching leaders, measuring resolve. Eisenhower knew authority, once asserted, must be maintained, or chaos returns without warning. Montgomery accepted this reality slowly, pride contained, history turning pages without his pen. The silence after snapping endured, setting the stage for decisions yet unseen and irreversible. By 16 July 1945, the world shifted again, quietly, yet irreversibly, beyond Europe. In New Mexico, a test shook the desert. News traveling slowly, altering calculations everywhere. Eisenhower received coded summaries, grasping immediately that war and peace had changed form. He understood authority now required unity more than ever, especially among uneasy allies. Montgomery heard rumors only, sensing exclusion from circles where the future crystallized. His role remained ceremonial, important yet bounded, a symbol of past victories. On 17 July 1945, Potsdam preparations accelerated. Leaders gathering, tensions sharpening. Eisenhower advised firmly, stressing cohesion, warning against fractures the Soviets could exploit. Montgomery offered perspective cautiously, invoking past appeasements, yet his voice landed softly. The snapping moment defined these interactions, shaping who spoke, who listened, and who decided. In occupied Germany, civilians watched uniforms change purpose, from conquerors to administrators. Soldiers felt uncertainty deepen, orders shifting from combat to control, from urgency to endurance. Eisenhower toured camps and cities, reminding officers restraint preserved legitimacy. Brutality destroyed peace. Montgomery followed schedules, attended briefings, yet felt history accelerating without him. This was not exile, but repositioning, his influence narrowed by necessity, not malice. The alliance moved carefully, balancing fear of Soviet ambition with exhaustion from war. Eisenhower carried quiet resolve, having drawn a line once, unwilling to redraw it. Montgomery understood finally, snapping ends debates, and silence defines the future. On 18 July 1945, Eisenhower watched reports from Potsdam settle into grim patterns. Negotiations hardened quickly, smiles thin, words chosen carefully, and trust measured in inches. He sensed the alliance straining again. This time not from ego, but ideology and fear. Montgomery followed developments from a distance, informed yet detached, reading between official lines. The snapping moment echoed here too, defining access, influence, and whose counsel carried weight. Eisenhower advised patience, warning that pressure now could fracture peace before it formed. Stalin tested boundaries relentlessly, probing weakness, while Western leaders recalculated leverage. Montgomery offered historical caution, invoking past appeasements, yet his voice landed softly. On 19 July 1945, Eisenhower conferred with senior commanders, stressing unity above brilliance. He reminded them wars are won by aggression, but peace survives only through restraint. Soldiers across Germany felt tension deepen, patrols tightened, rules clarified, tempers checked. Montgomery toured occupied zones, greeted respectfully. Yet decisions followed other signatures. He understood now that authority had migrated permanently, shaped by that quiet July meeting. Eisenhower carried no satisfaction, only responsibility. Knowing fractures invite catastrophe. The world stood balanced, atomic power looming. Alliances fragile, exhaustion universal. Montgomery reflected privately on command, realizing victory does not guarantee relevance. History rewards adaptation, not just courage, especially when cannons fall silent. The snapping was never public, never dramatic. Yet its consequences shaped the coming ERA.BY. 20 July 1945, the final contours of Allied command were unmistakable. Eisenhower's authority extended naturally, accepted by default, reinforced by every meeting. Montgomery remained present, respected deeply, yet absent from decisive corridors of power. At Potsdam, debates intensified, borders argued, reparations demanded, and futures contested fiercely. Eisenhower's counsel stressed caution, knowing overreach today could ignite wars tomorrow. He carried lessons from that July meeting, drawing lines early, preventing escalation later. Montgomery observed quietly, noting how restraint commanded more influence than insistence ever had. On 21 July 1945, occupation directives circulated, signatures final, language precise. The machinery of peace began grinding forward, slow, fragile, and unforgiving. Soldiers sensed permanence replacing urgency. Rotations planned, families anticipated. Wounds still fresh. Montgomery visited memorials, saluting fallen men, aware glory fades faster than consequence. Eisenhower visited hospitals, speaking softly, acknowledging sacrifice without triumphalism. Both men carried weight differently now, one shaping policy, one shaping memory. The snapping moment had ended debate, but not respect, nor shared history. Europe rebuilt cautiously. Walls rising, ideologies hardening. Friendships tested daily. Eisenhower understood leadership meant choosing when to stop listening, for unity's sake. Montgomery accepted silence as his final campaign. Dignity preserved, ambition restrained. On 22 July 1945, Eisenhower stood alone briefly, reviewing orders already irreversible. The alliance held, not because of speeches, but because a line had been drawn quietly. Montgomery prepared to depart Germany. Duties complete, influence reduced. Legacy already solidifying. There was no final confrontation. No dramatic farewell, only routine replacing rivalry. Eisenhower reflected on command, knowing snapping was not anger, but responsibility finally asserted. He had protected unity, limited fracture. and preserved authority when victory tempted indulgence. Montgomery understood this truth privately, that coalitions survive on restraint, not brilliance alone. Their paths diverged here, one moving toward statesmanship, the other toward historical memory. On 23 July 1945, Europe exhaled cautiously, rebuilding beneath watchful occupiers. The world's center of gravity shifted westward, then eastward, shaped by unseen decisions. The snapping moment was never recorded formally, never quoted, never dramatized. Yet it silenced debate, ended rivalry, and preserved an alliance at its breaking point. History often turns not on battles, but on rooms where voices lower, not rise. That day, Eisenhower did not shout, threaten, or condemn. He simply decided, and the world adjusted accordingly.